Urgent call from the unconscious. Have you ever woken up with your chest tight, your heart racing, and the real sensation that you were drowning? Even after opening your eyes, your body still reacts as if it had fought for its own life. Dreaming of drowning is not just a simple nightmare. It is one of the most intense, symbolic, and revealing dreams the unconscious can produce. It arises when emotions exceed their limits, when the soul feels suffocated, when something inside you is crying out for help. This dream does not happen by chance, nor without reason. It appears as a warning, an alert, and often as a desperate plea for change. Throughout this deep narrative, you will understand the spiritual and psychological meaning of dreaming about drowning, why this dream appears at certain moments in life, and what urgent messages it carries. Allow yourself to listen until the end, because the answer you are looking for may be right here. Water as a mirror of the unconscious. In the language of dreams, water is one of the oldest and most universal symbols of the human psyche. It represents the unconscious, the deep emotional world, that which is not fully accessible to the rational mind, but silently influences thoughts, decisions, and behaviors. When water appears in dreams in an abundant, intense, or uncontrollable way, it indicates that accumulated emotions are trying to surface. In the specific case of drowning, it is not just about feeling emotions, but about being overwhelmed by them. Psychologically, this dream usually arises when a person spends long periods repressing feelings, avoiding conflicts, swallowing frustrations, or forcing themselves to be strong all the time. The unconscious then creates the image of rising water that invades and suffocates, like a symbolic scream saying there is no more inner space to hold all of this. This type of dream also appears in highly responsible people who carry other people's problems, absorb the pain of others, and consistently place themselves last. In this case, water symbolizes not only one's own emotions, but also the emotions of others that have been absorbed over time. Spiritually, water has a sacred meaning. It is associated with cleansing, baptism, renewal, and the passage between states of consciousness. To drown spiritually represents a crisis of identity, a feeling of being lost within oneself. It is as if the soul were going through a process of ego dissolution, where old beliefs, patterns, and illusions begin to collapse. This inner breakdown is uncomfortable, but necessary for spiritual growth. The dream appears as a warning. Something needs to be felt, acknowledged, and transformed. The lack of air as a symbol of emotional oppression. The lack of air is the most distressing element of the drowning dream. Psychologically, it represents extreme anxiety, constant emotional pressure, and the feeling of not having space to fully exist. Many people who have this dream live trapped in obligations, external expectations, and harsh inner demands. They feel they must handle everything, please everyone, and never fail. Over time, this posture generates a silent, emotional collapse. The unconscious translates this inner state as the inability to breathe. Spiritually, breathing symbolizes the breath of life, vital energy, the connection with the divine and with one's own essence. When the dream blocks breathing, it indicates spiritual disconnection, loss of meaning, and separation from one's purpose. The soul feels trapped in a life that no longer reflects who the person truly is. This dream arises as a clear warning that continuing to live this way is emotionally and spiritually unsustainable. Drowning alone and the pain of inner abandonment. Drowning alone in a dream reveals a deep loneliness that goes beyond the physical absence of people. Psychologically, it indicates a feeling of invisibility, of not being heard, understood, or welcomed. Often, the person helps everyone around them but finds no space to speak about themselves. This prolonged emotional isolation creates an inner emptiness that the dream translates as abandonment. Spiritually, this scenario represents a mandatory journey of self-knowledge. The soul is led to look inward, recognize its own needs, and learn to rescue itself. It is a painful process, but an extremely transformative one. The dream teaches that no one can dive for you, but also that you can learn to rise to the surface on your own, struggling to swim and not moving forward. When the dreamer struggles to swim, thrashes about but does not move forward, the unconscious reveals frustration, exhaustion, and a sense of stagnation. Psychologically, this dream appears in people who make great efforts but feel that life is not progressing. It may be related to work, relationships, or personal projects that consume energy without offering returns. Spiritually, swimming without moving forward symbolizes resistance to the flow of life. It is trying to control everything by force, when the true lesson is to learn to trust, let go, and allow the natural movement of existence to happen. The dream teaches that effort without awareness leads to exhaustion. Seeing another person drowning. Seeing another person drowning in a dream indicates emotional projection. Psychologically, it may represent excessive concern, guilt, or emotional responsibility for someone else. Often, the dreamer recognizes in the other a pain that they also experience internally. Spiritually, this dream may be a call to help, guide, or intercede for someone who is emotionally or spiritually lost. However, it also warns of the danger of trying to save everyone and forgetting to take care of oneself. Not every rescue is possible, and recognizing limits is also spiritual wisdom. Being saved from drowning. Being saved in the dream brings a message of hope and relief. Psychologically, it indicates that support is available, even if it is not yet clearly perceived. It may be a person, a decision, a treatment, or an inner awakening. Spiritually, Spiritually, it symbolizes protection, divine intervention, and confirmation that the crisis has a solution. The dream shows that even in the darkest moments, there are forces working in your favor. Drowning in dirty or murky water. Dirty water represents toxic emotions, harmful environments, and recurring negative thoughts. Psychologically, it indicates that the dreamer is emotionally contaminated by draining situations or people. Spiritually, it symbolizes dense energy, distance from spirituality, and an urgent need for inner cleansing. The dream appears as a request to move away from what sickens the soul. Sea, river, or pool. The setting of the conflict. The place where the drowning occurs brings important details. The sea represents deep and unpredictable emotions. The river symbolizes the flow of life and inevitable changes. The pool indicates problems arising in environments that seemed safe. Psychologically and spiritually, the setting reveals exactly where the inner conflict lies and where awareness needs to act. Dying by drowning in a dream. Despite the fear, dying by drowning in a dream is not a bad omen. Psychologically, it represents the end of an inner cycle of outdated emotional patterns. Spiritually, it symbolizes rebirth, profound transformation, and liberation from what no longer serves. Death in the dream announces new life. The final message of the drowning dream. Dreaming of drowning is an urgent call from the soul. Something is in excess and needs to be recognized. This dream comes to save, not to punish. Listening to its message is the first step to rise to the surface, breathe, and live in a more conscious, lighter way, aligned with your truth. If this content made sense to you, leave your like now. It helps the channel a lot to continue bringing deep interpretations like this. Subscribe to the channel and activate the notification bell to be alerted whenever a new video is published. Here, every dream is an invitation to self-knowledge, emotional healing, and spiritual awakening. Thank you for listening until the end.